Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, whenever you so happen to be watching the Americans for Prosperity Tennessee Weekly Update on April 15th. We are back at it again, another week, another great set of stories to tell at the state level, at the federal level, another slew of ways that you can take action at the state level, at the federal level. We have ways that you can thank legislators for supporting good bills. We have ways where you can get at legislators for maybe supporting bad bills. We have ways where you can make your voice heard. And you heard me introduce there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you so happen to be watching this. This thing we're doing here, the weekly update, is meant for a community dialogue, an exchange of ideas. We want you to interact with us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, wherever you so happen to be watching this program right now. We're hoping at one point in this program that the comments will drive the content delivery of this program. If you so happen to be watching back later on, share it with your friends, share it with your communities, share it with your organizations that you are a part of so that they can also take action and stay up to date. Because, Tori, tell me if I'm wrong, we kind of get in the weeds a little bit here with some state issues. With that being said, Tori, Venable, State Director of Americans for Prosperity, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Grant. It's been a day of phone calls, but
yeah.
I am here for it.
Hey, a day of phone calls is always it's usually a good thing, though, right? I mean, it's better than a day of something else. Sometimes it's better than a day of lack of phone calls, that's for sure. Hey, we also have David Thompson on with us from the Knoxville area. He's the Knoxville GED. He's the guy you hear sometimes in the background. Any of these graphics you see going on up here around the screen, the nice little watermark, which may be down around this area or maybe this area, that's all coming from our buddy David Thompson. David, buddy, how you doing?
Well, thanks for reminding me for the watermark. I actually just put it back on the screen. It was gone, but it's up there now. But great to see everyone tonight. Thank you for joining us, and looking forward to the great info tonight.
All right, let's start then by diving directly into this. No more prelude necessary. We all know what we're doing here. Comment, share, like, all that great stuff. Let us know how you're doing. If you click in the description section of this video, if you're watching on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, wherever you're watching, it will expand out. You'll see an Evernote link. Anything we're talking about on this this day, this show, you'll see notes in the Evernote links. You'll see ways to take action. You can follow right along with us. Let's get directly into it by going over what happened in the state legislature this past week. And it will eventually get us into what I think is one of the more enticing headlines that we've given out since we started this little show, taxpayer-funded lobbyists. That's all I'm going to say for it right now. It's a little thing we used to do back in the radio biz. You tease them, you move back onto it later on. House Bill 1315, House Bill 1315. Now, for those of you that may not know what that House bill did, it was the truth and taxation portion of the bill. Right, we already have a version of truth and taxation in Tennessee right now, primarily through the certified tax rate that most of you know. But the simple idea is this: when a city or a county has a reckless spending and debt problem, say like Nashville, for example, it will be required to mail a detailed notice to all of its citizens in advance of any proposed property tax increase. People will know exactly how much their individual taxes might go up, what their current tax rate is, when the vote will be held, and they will have an opportunity to be heard before officials actually cast their vote. And the intention of truth and taxation is quite obvious, at least in this format. Those officials, those elected officials, can either choose to listen to their constituents' concerns during these public hearings, or they can choose to ignore those concerns while still holding public office. But at least that legislation, the intent was to give taxpayers a fighting chance when those local government officials decide to levy massive tax hikes. And you all are hearing here that I'm speaking in the past tense, would have, did do this, was going to do this. And that's because last week it failed in subcommittee, or so the chairman thought that he heard more no votes than yes votes. We spoke about this last week. This week here, 2 days ago, it failed one more time. There was a procedural rule that I'm going to get Tori maybe to fill us in on, and then we're going to watch the video. There was a procedural rule by which if a member of the subcommittee is not in the prevailing party, meaning they did not record themselves as a yes vote last week because the no votes won, that member could bring up a motion to reconsider the bill. And to reconsider that bill, you needed 6 yes votes. Now, before I play the video, Tori, of what happened on Tuesday, fill people in about the grassroots movement that was there. Anything else you want to catch up on? Anything else I missed there before we get to this video?
So, yeah, a motion to reconsider is just that. And it takes it takes the majority of what would be the full committee, even not just those present, but the full committee. And we have one member that's on the committee that's very, very ill. And so he has not been present for these hearings. So that would have been 9 members that are on the committee, plus the Speaker of the House. So a majority of 10, which would be 6, is what it would take to reconsider. Now, as you all know, we had 5 yes votes, but that means that we needed one more vote. We needed one of those no votes to say, or perhaps even the chairman to say, you know what? Maybe I did hear it wrong. It's the whole reason the motion to reconsider even happens. So that's what the position we were in. And we were so thankful to be able to bring a lot of our volunteers that were engaged in the Nashville Taxpayer Protection Act, as well as even Metro Council member Steve Glover. And there were plenty of people that wanted to speak on how important this was. But in order for them to even speak, the motion had to carry to allow the bill to be reconsidered.
Hey, and David, by the way, just behind the scenes notes here, if you could enable that screen sharing, I'm going to play a video here in just a second. What you just heard her explain here, obviously, is the process of bringing about this bill. And the video that we're about to play, unfortunately, ended up with 4 no votes and 4 yes votes. And one of these committee members, in particular, had a little bit of a switch, a change of mind. But the idea is that we essentially had 2 votes less than what we ended up needing here. All right. Now, let me just go ahead and we'll play this video. And I want to play the entirety of the video of what happened in this subcommittee, just so you all can see exactly how this went down. And then we'll explain what's happening actually behind the scenes here as well. And just so everyone knows, this screen you're looking at right now, let me go ahead and enlarge this here for everyone. This, wait, hang on here. Get back to what we needed to. Hang on, sorry. Radio vamping here. All right, now we're back on it. There we go. Video you're looking at right now. If you ever come up on these screens for the Capitol website here, you can actually click on the bills in the left-hand side of the screen. You can see the bills, and they'll actually take you directly in the video spot where you want to be listening. Here's House Bill 1315, House Bill 1315. Here's what ended up happening.
That brings us down to item number 4, House Bill 1315 by Chairman Reedy. Chairman Reedy, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With a roll call vote, I make a motion on House Bill 1315 that we reconsider our actions on this bill, sir.
Have a proper motion. To hear a second? Been motioned and seconded. All right, on a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Representative Hodges?
No. Representative Hodges was a no. It's a little bit soft on the volume here, so I'm going to let you know how everyone's voting. Hodges was a no.
Representative Leatherwood?
Leatherwood's a yes.
Representative Reedy?
Reedy bill sponsored a yes.
Representative Sexton?
Sexton's a yes.
Representative Wright?
Wright's a no.
Chairman Moody?
Moody is a yes.
Chairman Carter? Chairman Crawford?
No.
Crawford is a no.
Chairman Carr?
No.
Carr is a no. Now keep watching.
I have 4 ayes and 4 nays.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. According to the Parliamentary Rules of Procedure, to reconsider a bill must have at least 6 votes from this committee. Therefore, the reconsideration has failed. Bill goes back to the desk.
Now, indulge me for another 20 seconds here, because what you're about to watch, you can't see on the screen. What you're about to witness here is a little behind the scenes action, because behind what you're looking at right now, or rather what Representative Dale Carr is facing, is a room full of, I don't know, Tori, David, tell me anywhere from 20 to 30, maybe in the high end 35 people. We had a sizable number of activists down there. And this year in particular, it's the activist presence, the grassroots presence in the building that's been virtually non-existent. There are 2 kinds of people in that building from day one until about now. Legislators and lobbyists, right? That's the 2 of them. It's legislators and lobbyists. Half of them are attorneys, who knows? But grassroots presence is not there. Now, just to give you a sense of what grassroots presence does, when this bill failed to be reconsidered, all 35 of us so calmly stood up and exited the room. But here's what ended up happening.
We're moving on now to our special calendar. Our special calendar, HB 1326 by Representative Hardaway. Representative Hardaway, you are recognized. Do I hear a motion or second?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do I hear a second? Do I hear a second? Bill fails for lack of second. Did you second it? I'm sorry, my bad. Okay, we'll reconsider it. You are recognized, Representative
Now,
Hardaway.
again, it's probably highly coincidental that what ended up happening there is that the room was in such a state of distraction that the chairman ended up not hearing the first time around. Initially missed that. But what I do believe is at least part that plays into this here, Tori, is if you have a room full of grassroots people that large, if you have a presence, it makes a statement when everybody stands up and moves out at the same time. I would imagine, because I was looking back at the committee while this was happening, everybody was watching us. Everybody was realizing instantaneously that that room was there for one single solitary purpose. It was for that bill.
And they knew before we all stood up. They knew while we were there. I was watching because we were all there before the committee started. And Grant, you and I were talking to the different volunteers that showed up that day and, made sure that everybody was placed throughout the room. So, they knew while we were there. I think they were maybe even anticipating, that maybe some of our folks would have behaved poorly, but that's not what people do. That when you're there and you know why you're there, you're not gonna act out in committee and get kicked out. You're gonna just peacefully get up, and they were rightfully angry. And there was plenty of them that said, "What can we do? What can we do to hold these people accountable?" To which I said, "Let's talk about this outside of the building."
Yeah.
And we went outside.
They went outside and they started having conversation. And we got some great pictures of people standing around Tori, sort of up on a little ledge, talking to these people down. But I truly believe the biggest difference, like I said, between the legislature in previous years and the legislature this year, the biggest difference is that lack of grassroots presence in the building. Again, I think it's pure coincidence that they missed a second on the follow-up bill. But I do think there was something to say that the room was certainly in a state of distraction because you just don't see grassroots people there, right? Not this year at all. This has probably been the most disheartening year to see that because, Grant, as you and I were talking about this earlier, this should be a liberty movement happening at the legislature, and especially a Republican trifecta state like Tennessee, a conservative state. We should see, such a groundswell of support for liberty type of issues. And yet here we are, and we're seeing terrible bills pass, bad bills pass, bills that take away your liberty and freedom passing without hardly even being questioned. And then we see bills like ours, the Truth in Taxation bill. We see many other good bills failing to get the proper support it needs to get through the committee process. Good bills are dying and bad bills are passing, and that is not a good place to be. Exactly. You just said it. Bad bills are passing because grassroots people are not there. Good bills are failing because grassroots people are not there. I'll say it again. A government that is continually held accountable by its people is one that we want. A government that does not have those people in the building, that is not continually held accountable by its people, is a government that can do essentially anything it wants. And when we have a scenario this year in particular where there's two types of people, legislators and lobbyists, it gets very strange as to what's happening behind the scenes. It feels less and less like a representative Republican. It feels more and more like sort of a good old boys type club of who do you know and how do you know them and where do you know them from type thing, right? And it's this lack of grassroots presence just by itself would be one thing, Tori. If it's just the lack of grassroots people showing up there, that'd be one thing. But something that I was exposed to this year, and again, for everyone that's watching now, I'm a little bit new to this legislature or the legislative process. Tori's been there for decades, okay? So this isn't news to her. What was news to me is the idea that there's a horde of people up there that are operating on behalf of that are being paid by taxpayer money, taxpayer-funded lobbyists. They thrive in a situation where good grassroots presence are not there to hold these people accountable. So for a second, Tori, if you could, let's talk a little bit about grassroots-funded lobbying. Let's talk a little bit, if you could, give us your impression as to this right here. And I'll just explain what you're looking at. This individual, little black suit, Tennessee Municipal League, is asking, the taxpayer, Joe Taxpayer right here, saying, who pays you to lobby against me? Who is it? Which entity out there? Where are you getting the money from, Tennessee Municipal League? Where are you getting the money to lobby against my best interest as a taxpayer? And obviously the answer is, well, you pay this. Tori, what's going on here?
So taxpayer-funded lobbying is very prevalent. It happens in a lot of states. And we actually got this image from Texas Public Policy Foundation, and they had a poll showing that 86% of people do not think that their tax dollars should be used to pay lobbyists to work against their interests. Imagine that, right? But this is something that's very prevalent. So often, like Tennessee Municipal League, for instance, it's an association that local government officials are part of. They pay dues into it, and with their dues, they pay for a contract lobbyist that lobbies on their behalf. And lobbying on behalf of the government officials is oftentimes in support of things like tax increases, encroachments on your freedom or your liberty. So many times this is, and they're not the only ones. I would say half of the contract lobbyists that are up there, most of them have contracts with taxpayer funded sources. And oftentimes the taxpayers foot the bill, and then they pay an even heftier price for the things that get lobbied for. We saw this with the gas tax. We saw this with Obamacare expansion. We've seen this with any number of bad policies. It's absolutely prevalent and out there. So that's exactly what they do. They're lobbying on your dime against your interest most of the time. And they are very good at what they do. They've been doing it for a long time.
If you just joined us, by the way, we're talking about the aspect of taxpayer-funded lobbying being the practice of using funds that come directly or indirectly from taxpayers for political lobbying purposes. And taxpayer-funding lobbyist is one government lobbying another. Essentially, it's the idea of tax dollars are used to pay lobbyists to go to state or federal legislatures to ask for more tax dollars. Do you see the perpetual nature here of what a problem this could potentially create? This is what's said in Two Views, a book called Two Views for Something Special and Into Taxpayer-Funded Lobbying. It says, in other words, it's one arm of the government trying to influence another arm of the government, usually in a publicly funded quest for more money or power. Okay? And Tori's going to have to stop me when I get off the rails here too much, because I want to tell a little bit of a personal story of how this has affected the criminal justice side of what we work on sometimes. Specifically,
let me add a caveat to it. So there's taxpayer-funded lobbyists, and then there's also government lobbyists.
Yeah,
so the government lobbyists would be like the governor's legislative liaisons. They are the ones that they do more than just government lobbying, but that's a primary role that they have. They actually lobby for the governor's legislative packages, whatever that may be, whoever, and all governors have these, well, in Tennessee, I don't know, every state, right? But here it's very common. And then you also have, you just have individuals that government relations, even though they're government employees, government relations is very much a part of their role. They do more than other things, but they don't register as lobbyists. They don't have to pay the professional privilege tax like other attorneys or lobbyists may have to. They are just like, they're a separate class, but they actually do provide some value in the other things that they do for legislators and constituent services.
And it's that value that they provide in the other things that they do for constituent service. Here's a little bit of what Tori's talking about. And Tori, honestly, stop me if I get off the rails. I'm taking a little bit of liberty here. But when we work on civil asset forfeiture issues, more often than not, we will run against the Department of Safety. Okay. And the history of why it's us and the Department of Safety that typically disagree, we don't have time to get into that. Just suffice to say, and take my word for it, that anytime we want to change anything, no matter how minor it is with the way that Tennessee operates as it pertains to civil asset forfeiture law, the Department of Safety is always right there. They are always right there. And after working for a little while with Department of Safety to get some bills correct before they meet subcommittee, House Bill 1254 is a great example of this. We had to work extensively behind the scenes with Department of Safety to make sure that they were comfortable with us raising the attorney's fees, which is what that bill does, so that people can get about $10,000 in attorney's fees so you can find a lawyer to take your case, because I don't got $10,000 laying around.
And that's Jerry Sexton. Jerry Sexton's our sponsor in that as well, right?
That's right. Yes, Sexton's our sponsor in that as well. But even just describing that scenario right there, Tori, the deliberation of that bill, House Bill 1254, raising the attorney's fees cap from $3,000 to $10,000, so it's more likely an indigent individual can find an attorney. That deliberation happened behind the scenes between lobbyists. It didn't really happen up in front of subcommittee, and it certainly didn't happen between legislators, as one thinks that it should. So typically we get in front of these subcommittees, and it's the Department of Safety that has a problem with the way that a bill may or may not go. And here's the rub for me, Tori. You can tell I'm venting now. The Department of Safety has access to information that we simply don't have access to. And it's the kind of information that will not just answer a constituent's concern, it will solve a life problem. I stole that from Tori. When someone calls up and says, hey, Representative such and such, can you do such and such? The representative says, yeah, let me contact Department of Safety. Department of Safety gets on the phone, answers the question, maybe even solves the problem, provides vital information that will correct a disservice in that constituent's life. That is the type of power influence that will turn a Democrat voting red for a very long time, or at a minimum will turn a Democrat voting for that particular Republican for a lifetime. Do you get what I'm saying? This is the type of constituent service, and it's so intermingled with an elected representative contacting Department of Safety and the Department of Safety's individual coming and speaking against our bills. I don't have access to that information. I don't have access to that type of relationship.
More than that, Grant, you know, I once was a legislative aide, so I know how much we would rely on the legislative liaison. So if I would have a constituent that needed help getting their unemployment benefits, there were people that you could call as a legislator's assistant. You could call them up, the legislative liaison, and say, hey, Miss Susie is having trouble getting her unemployment benefits. And some folks were so good at their jobs, like within a couple of hours, even something that individual had tried to fix for months would be fixed. And your member or that legislator would get the credit for it. And that's a very powerful thing. That's how government should work, to serve the people. But most people don't know that they could just reach out to their state legislator and ask for help on different state issues and actually get that help. So that is where a lot of that power and influence comes from, is the fact that they are very helpful. They do provide a vital constituent service.
Let me tell you what this leads to then. Okay, so the idea of taxpayer-funded lobbyists, or the idea of other departments representing something that may or may not be against the will of the majority of the people, it can lead to speculative thinking, or maybe it's not speculative at all. So here's what I'm talking about, okay? There's a new pushback against this most recent referendum fight. Now, Americans for Prosperity has nothing to do with the most recent referendum fight in Nashville. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a second round of a voter referendum saying, hey, before you increase property taxes, let us vote on this. Well, now they've gathered 14,000 signatures, and everyone is receiving this in the mail that you're seeing on the right-hand side of your screen. Everyone is receiving this version of this petition could be misleading. Call this number to withdraw your name today. It gives you a list of things right here that says, hey, Nashville Taxpayer Protection Act did not tell the full story. The Election Commission staff has already invalidated 1,600 signatures. The special election will cost Davidson County nearly $1 million of taxpayer money. Legal scholars believe the property tax cannot be repealed. I mean, this goes on and on and on. They're sending text messages.
On this anywhere? I didn't see who's paying for it.
I know.
I didn't see the proper. So, I mean, this is, I feel like they're probably, they're definitely breaking some kind of law or regulation.
Yeah, I thought in Tennessee, if you did something like that, you had to make it clear where it was coming from.
I mean,
and that's what I'm saying, man. It's like this type of stuff sets up the idea. All it says is withdraw my name. That's it. It's just withdrawmyname.com. Nobody knows where the funding's coming from necessarily. We don't know who's pushing behind it. But the speculation now is like, I don't know, man. Is this on behalf of the city? Is this city dollars? Can we speculate? It gets people in a very strange point of thinking. And the reason why I'm bringing that up, David and Tori, here is not even necessarily to make an accusation. It's just to say that when you set the standard that this is how the game is played, the populace loses trust in the institutions of government. That is not just problematic, it is beyond problematic. Once we lose trust in these basic institutions, our entire framework is established off something called voluntary consent. If these people stop voluntarily consenting due to the faith they have in these institutions, we've lost the plot of the entirety of all of it. And now I've really gone way past it. So Tori, David, before we get on to updates from some of these other bills that passed this week where they're sitting, anything else we missed with truth and taxation, taxpayer-funded lobbyists, any of this stuff?
You know, I'd be really interested to hear other folks' perspectives. Do you know that taxpayer-funded lobbying is the thing? Do you support it? You know, we saw what Texas Public Policy Foundation put out. I'm really curious how Tennesseans feel about it. If 86% of Texans don't like it, I'd be willing to bet that probably about the same amount here in Tennessee, but I'd really like the data to back that up.
Well, just to start, if you're watching now or watching back later, we'd love to see in the comments, just put in there, I'm against taxpayer-funded lobbying, or I'm okay with taxpayer-funded lobbying. We would really like to know. And if you're wanting to thank the folks who did support truth in taxation legislation, you need to go to truthintaxationtn.com. I've pinned it in the comments on the Facebook page, or if you're watching this on YouTube or Twitch or whatever, it's truthintaxationtn.com, and you can send a letter to the representatives who did vote yes. If that's, and you want to, and we've talked about this all the time, it's not a virtue signal. It's not like posting on Facebook. It means a lot to these folks to hear from you about what you want in your community, in your state, because that's how they find out what you want. Otherwise, they are reliant on the words of, like they said, there's not a huge grassroots presence up at the Capitol. So there's taxpayer-funded lobbyists, corporate lobbyists, and then people like us, grassroots lobbyists, and the representatives, and that's it. So they need to hear from you. That's truthintaxationtn.com.
Absolutely. Thank you. Valid, absolutely valid. And, you know, for so many legislators, they hear all the time when they do things wrong.
Yeah.
They hear all the time when people want them to do something. They rarely get a thank you or a note of encouragement, and a kind word goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll see that David linked that as the pinned comment in Facebook. You can find the same thing in YouTube and Twitter. Wayne said, by the way, they asked your question, David, are you for or against? Wayne said an emphatic against. I added the emphatic, but I'm assuming he's emphatic about it. Kathy said, I'm definitely against taxpayer-funded lobbying. I'm not sure who would be for that, but hey, like you, David said, put it in there, put it in the comments. Let's move on to a few other bills that passed this week, or at least give you updates as to what happened, and then we'll get on to some federal rundown stuff. So, House Bill 1254, Senate Bill 1361. You heard me speak about this briefly before. Simply, in civil asset forfeiture cases, raises the attorney's fees from $3,000 to $10,000. Just makes it so that people can have it easier to find an attorney to take your case, because attorneys won't do it for $3,000. That passed without a single objection out of the Civil Justice Full Committee this week. Great stuff there. We're really excited about that bill. House Bill 948 and Senate Bill 1281. This one is it too much to say massive comprehensive certificate of need overhaul, Tori?
Certificate of need reform. It's a major step in the right direction to improve access and lower cost in healthcare. And so that's, yeah, James talked about that a couple of weeks back, and that is still moving forward. We also have our open enrollment bill. And this will be on the floor in the House on Wednesday. And this is open, but basically public school choice within the same district gives parents more transparency, a 14-day window to be able to see where the open seats are and enroll their child in a different public school of their choosing. And so I think we've got a link that you could actually reach out in support of that, but that'll be on the House floor on Wednesday. And that is House Bill 1305 and Senate Bill 788.
And before we move past the certificate of need, there are certificate of need talking points in the Evernote. Again, one more time, if you click the description of this video, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, wherever you're watching it expands, you can find those talking points on what certificate of need is, what this House Bill 948 intends to change, how certificate of need is essentially opening up free market availability to healthcare in general, giving us greater healthcare, more access in rural areas, basically make it so we have greater innovation, all that stuff. Another one that just passed out of Criminal Justice Full Committee this week, I think without a single objection, also, Tori, is House Bill 870. This will ensure that a victim is made whole if a criminal restitution is ordered. Basically prioritizes that victim getting paid first as opposed to the courts getting paid first. Talk about that a minute, Tori.
And to think that ever became a thing, that the government decided it was going to collect its money first before the actual victim, it's so wrong. I was so appalled when I found out about it a couple of years ago. And, you know, Representative Clay Doggett was our sponsor last year. COVID shut it down. And that's the reason we didn't get it through last year. But we've got even more support for this bill this year. So it's House Bill 870, Senate Bill, I am drawing.
893.
Okay, 893. And that's Senator Stevens has that on the Senate side, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely reaching out in support of those. I think both of those should be moving fairly quickly now as well. We are in the final days.
Yeah.
I think, 3 weeks, maybe.
Yeah.
That's about how long it is.
One other one that I wanted to bring people's attention to before we touch a few federal issues, House Bill 409. So it's been an ongoing saga for me personally. It's another civil asset forfeiture bill. It's a simple transparency bill. It's supposed to be just a simple reporting bill, but something a little strange happened. And I kind of want to put Tori in the spot and just get her immediate take here. All right. So in the House side, Senate side as well, anytime you have membership accumulating together, you have to get something called a quorum. If you say the example here being, if you have a committee that has 9 people on it, you have to reach that golden number of 5 before you can proceed with business for very obvious reasons.
There's a minimum requirement in order to do the people's business, and that's in order to protect the people.
Yeah, exactly. It's called a quorum, right? So in a committee of 9 individuals, 8 individuals in the committee chair, you need 5 there. And that's the minimum you can have here. So on this particular day, which was this past Tuesday, House Bill 409, Simple Transparency Reporting Bill for Civil Asset Forfeiture, was up with 5 members. 5 folks were there, the minimum you need, okay? 2 of which had signed on to the bill already, meaning they were co-sponsors of the bill, meaning I don't have to say this any further, but they're highly supportive of a bill if you sign your name to that bill, okay? Chairman Lafferty gets up here to present this bill, and the bill fails for a lack of second. Tori, can you tell them what that is, first of all? And secondly, have you seen that happen before where you have 5 subcommittee members, 2 of which have signed on, and a bill fails for a lack of second?
It should be important to mention, too, you showed that almost happened in the video that we showed earlier. So if you've been watching this whole time, like you even saw that almost happen to, I can't remember the representative's name, but if you watch earlier in this video, it happens where the whole thing shuts down if you don't get a second.
Yes, that it does happen. It happens more. It's more prevalent towards the end of session. And a lot of that, how that happens is when, say, members that normally would be on that committee, say they're in another committee or they're presenting a bill in a different committee when their committee is meeting. So this is how you end up with not having all the same people, but sometimes they just don't hear it. Sometimes they don't hear the second. And if you don't have someone else sitting there that objects loudly right then, right when it happens, because like as you saw with Carr, he said failed for lack of a second, bang the gavel, and then you don't hear it I guarantee you it happens. Someone sitting there said, no, I said seconded, and that's where he said, oh, okay, my bad. But if that person who said the second does not immediately object and say, point of order, basically, I did say second, then that's it. And it happens a lot towards the end of session. It happens as grudges are worked out publicly in committee. It happens when one member has made other members angry. It happens when a cool breeze is blowing. It happens to good bills and it happens to bad bills. It happens.
Yeah, and to be completely fair to Chairman Andrew Farmer, that was the Civil Justice Subcommittee. I've linked a video in the show notes so you all can see it for yourselves. To be completely fair, I didn't hear a second. Chairman Lafferty didn't hear a second. I just thought it was a little bit strange, and it was just my simple way to tell the story of like, hey, man, Tennessee politics in general is politics in general, okay? The day you think you figured it out is the day that they got one up on you, all right? So let's do this real quick here. We're going to do a weird thing again. We're going back to Inception style real quick here, but let's just do this for a little bit of the remainder of the show here. Boom. Facebook, inside of a Facebook, we're doing Inception on the way out of the program here. Quick federal rundown. I'm going to get everyone's take here as we're seeing this on our screen. If you hover over this, as you're looking right now, see this in the top right-hand corner on Facebook. Same thing in YouTube and Twitch. Click see more. Click that Evernote link. Evernote takes you to all the notes that we're following through today. Immediately what hits you in the face is federal issues, ways to take action. Okay, that's what I'm going to go over right now. Is just all the federal issues that we're tracking in Americans for Prosperity and all the ways you can take action on them. I'm going to get Tori to give some comments. I'm going to get David to give some comments as well. Here we are. First one. It's some of these things I don't think people realize are still moving on, but stand up for freedom of speech by rejecting S.1. And what they're talking about, obviously, if you click on this, you'll go to this screen right here. It sends a letter directly to your senator. Most people know this as H.R.1. It's S1 just doesn't carry as well as H.R.1, right? But it's
the Politicians Act. I think Pelosi tried to call it the For the People Act, but in typical doublespeak, you can guarantee that is the opposite of what this bill would do. So this is the Senate version of that, For the Politicians Act.
There you go. And you can sign this letter right now. You can see some of the things that obviously Americans for Prosperity's take on here and what H.R.1 S.1 would do. It would create unconstitutional restrictions on political speech. It would reduce the ability of nonprofits and other civic groups to advocate for their communities, politically weaponize the Federal Election Commission, right? Sign this letter right now. As soon as you sign your information, hit sign the letter at the bottom, send. It goes directly to your legislator. And just so you all don't think that it's just AFP that has this particular perspective. David, let's go back to radio days for just a quick second here, man. Do a quick op-ed royale on the way out of the program before we tell them other ways they can take out federally. Op-ed royale is a quick rundown of op-eds across the internet. This is not just us. This is not just AFP's take on H.R.1 S.1. Here's Tyler O'Neill from PJ Media. He says, the bill would also require politically active organizations, including 401c3 nonprofits, 501c3s, to disclose donors who give more than $10,000 or more. While Democrats rallying against dark money has convinced Americans there is something inherently sleazy about groups of Americans spending money to advocate for causes they believe in, Americans do not lose their right to free speech when they enter the political arena. The mandated disclosure of an organization's donors in particular undercuts this fundamental right. It is beyond debate, says Tyler O'Neill from PJ Media, that the freedom to engage in association for the advancement of beliefs and ideas is an inseparable aspect of liberty, assured by the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. The Supreme Court wrote in the landmark case. You'll see it for yourself right there. You can also see that Henry Olsen over at the Washington Post, of all places, has a problem with this bill. He says that it obviously is going to affect voter registration. States would also be required to adopt same-day voter registration in federal elections. He goes on to say this bar bills any state from requiring identification for a mail-in ballot. The editorial board at Wall Street Journal says H.R. 1 would overrule state laws against ballot harvesting, letting Americans nationwide designate any person to return a vote. We have some stuff from National Review. The point I'm making is, in the op-ed royale, you can read more yourself. It's not just us. It's not just Americans for Prosperity. There are a slew of individuals across the board in a bipartisan manner that don't like this legislation. It will come up in the Senate. Make your voice heard on this right now. David or Tori, anything we missed on H.R.1 S.1 there before I let them know other federal issues that are going on?
Well, the one good thing for Tennesseans is we have confirmed that both Senator Blackburn and Senator Haggerty are going to be a no on S.R.1. So they're going to be no votes, which is good. We want them to vote no. We don't want them to support something so terrible. And you can still reach out, or maybe thank them for voting no on it. Or, if you've got the time and energy for it, maybe reach out to, your friends and family in a different state where you've got someone that's a centrist Democrat that might actually flip on this, because I think it will go very party line at the federal level, with the exception of the centrist. And those are the people you really need to focus in on.
And let's be real. I mean, if you have family in West Virginia, or where's Murkowski? I can't off the top of my head, but Manchin and Murkowski, if those are anybody in your family or friends, senators.
In Alaska.
I mean, I know people who live and work in Alaska. There's people who work there seasonally. Send them that link and tell them to make their voice heard. And Grant, we could talk for an hour on HR1 or S1. And of course, we missed something because it's one of those humongous bills that is like an interstate lane of law, interstate highway of laws just flying at you. It's so much, and a lot of it's kind of unrelated. It's one of those kind of bills like an omnibus bill or a National Defense Authorization Act. We could talk for 3 hours and not get to everything. It is everyone right of communist nightmare. It's just like there's no rules in elections. It's super weird. A lot of stuff that made everyone really angry that some states did last year.
Yeah.
All that is becoming legal for every state and required. So with all the problems we had last year, because I like elections to work. I like everyone to feel confident in elections. And I think confidence is going to go down. That's bad for the republic. So, there's all kinds of, and you hear what I'm hinting at here, everybody. It's stuff that you don't like. So, sign the letter. And even though our senators here in Tennessee are for it, and you think, oh, well, I don't need to contact them. You do. You need to let them know that it's a great decision and that you really appreciate it. And I put the link in the Facebook chat. So, please do that.
Hey, and quickly on the way out here, here's 2 or 3 more ways on massive major federal issues that are coming up very soon. You can take action. You're seeing this right now. It's linked in the show notes. All this stuff is, David will put it in the comment section as well. You just heard David talking about these massive spending bills, omnibus bills, just a lot of stuff going on at one time. So you're not able to pay attention to the details right here, y'all. Infrastructure bill. Okay. What did we say? Grover Norquist says that infrastructure is a French word that means everything but roads. Okay. Notaroadsbill.com is a way to take care of that for you right there. All right. If you click notaroadsbill.com, it will go directly to your legislator. Sign that bill. Again, infrastructure package raises taxes on families and businesses by trillions of dollars, mandates more government control over healthcare of all things, implements elements of the Green New Deal. You see where this thing is going. Speaking of healthcare, the personal option is an option that Americans for Prosperity has been rolling out in anticipation of the next step of dealing with the healthcare stuff. That is going to be the next thing coming around the corner for Democrats. Mark my words right now. I promise you, mark my words, that is going to be the next thing you're going to be hearing about in just a few months. It's not even speculation. It's not. President Biden has been very open and clear about that is going to be the next couple $1 trillion package they're working on is healthcare stuff. The personal option is obviously a much better way to go there. Check out what it means to introduce free market principles to healthcare. Lastly here, the PRO Act is still happening, y'all. Okay, the PRO Act is still moving. It's still going on. If you click this thing here, the PRO Act social media toolkit, it gives you a slew of ways to take action on the PRO Act. The PRO Act, among other things, again, this is the common theme for the federal stuff going on right now. Among other things, big quotations, this does a bunch of stuff, but among other things, it would basically make it so you don't have right to work states anywhere. It's basically do away with contract gig. The gig economy would be no more. It's essentially coerced or forced unionization. We have no problem with unions. I have no problem with association. I have no problem with that at all. There may be some good things that could come along with it, but the coercion behind it of saying that you cannot be employed unless you join this union is a step too far for us, obviously, and that's just the least of those things that it does. Here's some stuff, graphics to use. You can throw this all over your social media. You can learn more by clicking these links. Get yourself educated. Have those conversations with your people. Contact individuals. Those are just a few things we're working on. And next week, I presume we may be talking about this whole Supreme Court stacking thing. I know everyone at the top down is talking about all that stuff. But
and let me make a quick pitch for the PRO Act real quick. I mean, a lot of folks in East Tennessee, I worked as an electrician for a long time, and I actually worked as an independent contractor for about half that time. So many folks who either weld or do carpentry, electricians, plumbers. Not everybody works for a big company. Some people are independent contractors because they want a little more take-home pay, whatever the deal may be. This legislation will make that next to impossible. And it's not like all the big companies are going to be able to gobble up all the talent. They're not going to be able to afford to do it. They're not going to have the work for it. There are going to be people who lose their income. Guaranteed. And this is me. I'm not saying guaranteed. I probably shouldn't have said that. That's my projection on how it'll all shake out. Is a bunch of folks in East Tennessee who feed their families, pay their mortgage, fill up their gas tank, are going to be impaired, not able to do that, and have to find another way to get income. And yes, some of those people will be able to incorporate and hire employers regularly. And, I say regularly, not the independent contractor route, pay taxes for their employees and stuff. But not everybody who is an independent contractor will get one of those jobs. Mm-hmm. There will be people who fall through the cracks. And this is not a good time to not have a job. It's not a good time. And there's no excuse for it either, because in Tennessee, we're on fire right now. Our economy is on fire. We're building like crazy. They can't build enough houses for all the people that are moving here and stuff. So anything that slows the economy down is bad news for everyone else. Anybody who's not paying paying sales taxes and paying into the system, it hurts everything the state government's doing. And the domino effect is bad. And like lots of people in East Tennessee are contractors. Don't just glaze your eyes over at the PRO Act. Do something about it. It's worse than you think. If you spend some time looking at it, it's really bad. All right, so take action.
Tori, anything that we missed on the way out? Do you want to draw attention to any of the last parting words? Any sense of encouragement you want to? I don't know.
Hey, who shows up matters.
Yeah.
When you show up, it matters. I want you guys to understand that, session is not done yet. And while your life, liberty, and property may be at risk as long as they are in session, you can still do something about it. You can still show up on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or even a Monday or a Thursday. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are the busy days. you will see us there. We will take you around with us. You are welcome to join us. Your presence is missed at the Capitol. And anyone that cares about what's happening in state government, I would strongly encourage you to show up, because victory goes to those who show up.
That's right. That's well said, Tori. That's a good way to end that. We always appreciate the likes, shares, hearts, any of those emojis. The shares in particular really helps get this word out. And we're not asking that just, we're not trying to be rock stars here. We're trying to tweak this algorithm. Okay. The more people, more eyes we can get this stuff in front of, the more people we can get taking action. We're signing off for this week, though. We will be back next week. We love each and every one of y'all sincerely. See y'all soon.